Advertising provides a platform for manufacturing companies to create awareness about their products, services, and how much consumers could make the best out of their products. It increases the revenue and profitability of any business enterprise. Hello and welcome. I am Ejiro Sam Umuru. This is Business Matters, where business truly matters. Advertising is very relevant in today's modern business performance. It increases the rate of patronage of a new product, leading to increased revenue and profitability. Let's take our business updates. Advertising has been recognized by business enterprises as a profitable method of building demand for a company's products and services. It is one of the most important mediums of communication, influencing the business performance in various ways. Welcome to our professional segment. If you're just joining us, this is Business Matters, and we're actually in the professional segment of the program where we discuss one-on-one with industry experts. And today we're discussing the impact of advertising on business performance in Nigeria. And joining us today is someone with over almost 30 years of experience in the advertising agency industry, and she also is the founder of Ladybird Advertising Limited, and it is an advertising and marketing communications firm, and it is none other than Bunmi. Okay, welcome to the program, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
And every day we are bombarded with messages, and messages on billboards, on our phones, telling us where to shop, where to invest our money, and in recent times, who to vote for. So how would you describe advertising? Tell us about advertising.
Well, thank you very much. I think we should realize that advertising is the life wire of commerce, and it's the life wire of existence, because you find that if nobody knows you even exist as a person, you find that you probably won't even get married. It's just a very basic way of explaining that. You must be able to make a choice, whether it's the most pretty girl in the world. Now, we're now talking about products and services.
Yes.
If you don't know a product exists, it's going to be very difficult for you to make a choice or to even purchase that product or service. So it's very critical that you advertise. Advertising gives you the basis to say the message the way you want to say it, and that is why it's commercial. You pay for it to be said within, of course, parameters of professionalism, which means it must be truthful, it must be authentic, it must show the benefits of what you're going into. And so when you now come to where we are in terms of the political terrain now, you have to make sure that the brand you're promoting is also in line with the tenets of what you're saying. So your brand promises or your business promises must be able to deliver on what you say in your advertising. So I think it helps with the consumer's fundamental human rights to choice, putting it mildly.
Okay. And advertising has so many aspects to it. Could you discuss the different aspects of advertising to us?
Well, that's a very tough question, because when you say aspects, you talk about in terms of how it is, the business aspects of how it is conducted?
Yes,
or,
yes.
Well, a professional advertising agency has about 4 or 5 key departments, which people don't realize. For example, you will have your business angle, because first and foremost, without a client, you don't have business.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the brief of your clients. But clients come to you because they want a service. The service normally is something to do with the creativity you bring to the table.
Okay.
They want to stand out. They want something that differentiates them from the pack. So you find that that is what a creative department does, both in terms of design and in terms of the messages that they give out.
Okay.
I mean, put it in a very simplistic way, there's a whole myriad of ways you do it. Now, each advertising agency or everybody in the communication mix must understand how different media give you different opportunities to say different messages. And that's why we can tell the difference between a professional that does a good job and one that doesn't. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
You have digital advertising, which you may find that if you're sending an SMS, there are only so many words you can say, and that's why it's abbreviated. And then it also appeals to a certain target, so there's a way you write that. But if you're going to advertise to luxury, maybe luxurious items, for example, an upper class airline ticket, you're not going to send a text to do that because it may not do justice to the whole job.
Yes.
You've got to explain what is luxurious about the service you're offering. You've got to show the consumer areas that will add value so they know that they're getting value for money.
Now, technology and social media is more popular than ever before. Do you think, would you say that social media or digital media or marketing now is a better platform to market your products than traditional forms of media?
That's a very good question, but I am of the opinion that if you go into the history of advertising, what has changed is the medium through which you can send your messages. Okay. From the days when the town crier was ringing a bell, which is a form of advertising,
It is.
to the lady who is selling ogi and, sort of using her voice to make her jingle and tracking within a certain spell of area. Now you have different media and mediums to actually express those things. Social media is just the same issue. You have a different platform that also delivers faster. It's almost like same means of transport. Okay. You can still walk to the UK if you so wish. It just might take you how long to get there. Just like you can walk to Ibadan. But now with aeroplanes, with even the social media, you can choose that. How do I get what I want to do done? If it's a form of transportation, be it a form of communication. And that's what's happened in the digital space. But obviously, to utilize any medium properly, you've got to understand how it works. And you've got to understand the impact. And you've got to understand those who are using it. That's why it's a professional job. It's almost like saying, if you're a medical practitioner, and in days of old, when they had no digital technology to enhance proper diagnosis of a particular ailment, these days, the consumer can even check on what the doctor does by going to the good old internet. But now, in those days, you couldn't do that. Yeah. So it's the same thing with advertising. People can make their choices. People can even develop their own commercials and even their own little messages. But the question is, are you achieving the objective for which you've set out? The danger I will even say about social media is that if you don't get your message right, unlike before that you could just go to with terrestrial media or you can take it off air, it's already released.
Exactly.
And it's unlikely you. So I think if anything, you need to be extra careful about how you advertise and what you say on social media because if anything, I think it's a check to make yourself a bit more professional because you're not going to have the time to come back. And consumers can go and check and say, but this is what they said. They can analyze it. They even critique your advertising now.
That's true.
Even so, I think it's just a way of making you realize that everything has evolved. And therefore, it hasn't changed the relevance of different media, be it outdoor. They all have their different relevance. It's almost like saying in the medical profession, the nurse will always have their role, the auxiliary nurse, the surgeons will always have their, it's the same principle. But that they now use the digital technology to do things, and you call the nurse with your computer, doesn't necessarily mean that she's not going to do the basic, she might just do it a bit differently, but that service remains the same. So the same thing with communication.
So let's talk about integrity in advertising. Because I had an experience on Instagram. I saw a beautiful shop, very colorful Instagram page, and I think they sold drinks. So the picture was colorful, lovely pictures, and I was really looking forward to going to the shop or their store and having the same experience that I had looking at their page. But to my surprise, When I went to the shop, the products, the drinks were just on a shelf. And that was it. So I was disappointed and I felt cheated. So how would you advise companies to still maintain integrity even though they want new customers?
Thank you for that question. You know, we have to be fair to the fact that in Nigeria, we're what we call an emerging market,
Okay.
which means that some of the practices you have for global standards are not necessarily in place. That's why we have our roads that are not exactly perfect. We have our social service that are not exactly perfect, but we're all working towards it. It's the same thing with advertising. And you have to understand that we don't have a body. Let me rephrase it. The Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria is existing to actually modify and moderate advertising like what you experience, where the message you put out must be the message that is delivered. Unfortunately, that body, of which I used to be on the council when I was the president of AAAN, yes, that was the Association of Advertising Agencies, yes. When I was the president there, I was automatically on the council at that point. But the issue I'm bringing out is that those are bodies that are empowered to regulate that. I'm a fellow of APCON, which means you're at the highest, most senior experience level. I can tell you the problem that is going on. There's not enough, I would say, finance from government to actually checkmate those kind of commercials on the internet yet. So that's why a lot of messages you still have to double check. Even abroad, they'll tell you, please, we cannot guarantee everything that is on the internet. So you can imagine right here in Nigeria, we don't have the capacity to check everything yet. Hopefully we'll get there in our generation. But what I would say is that when you see things on the internet, whether it's news, an advert, take it with a pinch of salt because it's not regulated before it's put out there. Unlike a bona fide TV station, you can't just put anything on an NT or channels for that matter. You understand? Because they're regulated. But if it's on the internet, they can put, that's why people are trying to dissociate from fake news, which is real news. So the internet gives everybody the opportunity to express themselves. But it doesn't mean that everything expressed is necessarily true. That's why you can see someone who will say, my name is Jemima, and they'll put a dog on their face. You can't do that in real life. You must have a passport that shows who you really are. And your dog will also have a passport if you're traveling to other countries. But all I'm bringing out is that we have to be open-minded enough to understand that everything on the internet is not necessarily 100% true. So your disappointment in that case was unfortunate because the person who actually owned that medium, to me, had made a mistake. You would have rather they just showed you that I'm a startup. I already have this small. Honesty is always the best policy in the long run. Now you're still talking about the bad experience you had, not necessarily because the product itself was bad, but your expectations had been deceived. Now that is what advertising does not do. Advertising that is professional must tell you exactly what you're going to get. However, that's why it's called an advert. We all, let's say, put it this way, you find that even when you put makeup on your face, is that the real deal of the person? You all like a bit of what I call cosmetic makeover, and advertising is about packaging, making things look good, but still being honest. If I put makeup on myself and I'm looking a bit different, it doesn't make me not be who I am. So it's the same thing with product advertising. You present products and services in a glamorous way to attract people. But that glamour doesn't necessarily mean that everything that is glittering is gold. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. But the world itself is a world of aesthetics. Even God made the world. Look at the parks, the flowers. So to some degree, you find that advertising that doesn't have an aesthetic appeal is not attractive. And part of the rules of advertising must be attractive.
So that's my next question. Effective advertising, what are some of the rules that need to be followed?
I would say that's why we go back to the professional. Effective advertising is based on the objective. If your objective is to get people to notice that product, you measure it by exactly the objective you set. If I say, I want people to know I now sell bananas down the road, and they're all imported bananas. If you do a campaign that says, oh, I have imported bananas in my store, they're always fresh, they're this, you can measure the consumer's response. That, what did you understand by this advertising? If the person comes back and says, well, I understand that you sell only fake bananas, then there's a problem. That's not effective. But if you come back and you know say, by the time you measure, you have to do a research to measure the campaign message.
Okay.
That's the professional way of doing it. Or you get a one-on-one feedback. I mean, you must get feedback about what people understand by a message. So you have to be clear that people are clear to identify who this person is, what they can do, and what they can deliver. And that is when you know it's effective. So it's always measured by objective. So I'm
Okay.
giving you to that for free. So I'll let
Yes.
our consumers know that measure your by objective.
Yes. For smaller businesses, would you still advise them to work with an agency? Because at that point, or maybe a startup, they might not have the capital. Would you still advise that an agency, working with a marketing or advertising agency, is the way to go?
You see, I would say yes. Like, we all need to remember why it's important to deal with a professional. They say a journey of 1,000 miles
Begins
starts with one step. I think back to what you said, it's also part of integrity. That you don't have a big budget doesn't mean you cannot have an agency that wants to grow with you. But start where you are and also be professional. If it's 200 naira you pay for a particular, though we don't do it that low because you're professional, there'll be a professional fee. I'm saying maybe per impression or something like that on you know. I'm just saying agree upfront. There have been cases where I remember even in the industry when I was working in a bigger agency than where I was now, I found that of where I've just started, I found that part of how we grew was our strategy was say, look, we don't have this money to pitch with you yet, but when we win, let's all come together. So the person knows they're taking a risk in the business. And thank God we won many of them, which we intend to do, continue to do. So what I'm trying to explain is that I'm not sure everybody that comes, even for, how would I put it? You need to be upfront and honest about what you need to do. Then two, just like an aeroplane, I love the aeroplane example. There is upper class. There is premium economy. There is economy. You can go on an economy budget for your advertising. It doesn't mean eventually you will not fly your upper class. But you know, you all go together at the same time. Just like maybe one you have more comfort, some is more networking. You will get there, but Rome was not built in a day. So why don't you start with the fact that you need to do a good job? I'm sure even the same thing in the medical profession. You might not be able to afford the best of surgeons around the world, but you will still start with one that you are sure is not going to leave you worse off than when you started. So think about the same principle. Why will you deal with a professional, a non-professional who will probably make you worse off, but you don't even realize that you are worse off because you didn't even get the good deal in the first place? You say, it doesn't work. Meanwhile, they won't tell you the person you are dealing with doesn't even know what they are talking about. So I would still say, whether it's your teacher, it's like you send your child to a school and you don't send them to a school that you have professional teachers. It's not about how much you pay. You can go to a private school where you pay so much and they don't have the professional. You can go to a great public school. The important thing is that the fundamentals of any profession don't change. It's like cooking. The fundamentals, whether you go to Sheraton or you go to the Buka, it's still jollof rice.
Yes.
The only difference is that you are paying for your ambience in some cases. Some you have said, I don't want ambience, I just want to eat. You know, but the point is that the principle of the cooking that jollof rice will not change. So I think we should just be honest with ourselves and say, don't try and, there's a reality. When you want to do a good job and you want to get, and you understand the importance of why marketing communication is so critical, then I think you understand that you put a little budget. You start from where you are. Many agencies that have grown today have grown with clients that started with small budget and they become multi-million and you grow together.
So for a small budget, how would you give an estimate of a small budget?
I would say small is always relative,
Okay.
you know, to your objective. Yet again, if a woman runs a school, for example, and she wants to invite pupils, and her plan is to have just 10 quality students, it's different from someone who says, I have a school that I want everybody to come. I am going to have 50 students in the class. Now, let's go to products and services that we deal with every day. Let's say, for example, something like you want to sell spaghetti, okay? Now, because you have to think of the cost and the manufacturer, and that's why I said it depends on your long-term objective and plans. Someone who has invested billions in a business, the rule number is about 20% of your marketing budget. So if you've done billions, you take 20% of that. If your business is in the turnover of 1,000, take 20% of that. And if it's hundreds, take 20%. So for example, if somebody wants to start, let me put it this way, as mundane as it may sound. If somebody is selling akara and the total cost out and everything is 20,000. She may invest 20% of her total cost out. Let's say 2,000 naira. She just 200,000. Say, you know what, Mount Accra, how do I make it different? I'm going to brand just the covers of my package that I use, but I'm going to start by making sure that the logo remains constant. And they start saying, which one is this Akara again? That's how the small jobs have started too.
Okay.
It's not until, what I'm saying is that you're not going to go to an agency for that.
Okay.
Those are things you can do yourself. It's like saying if you want to cook too. It's not everything you go to a professional caterer for. There are some you need to do because you know you can cook at home.
Yeah.
But there are some you know that, I'm sorry, the kind of guests I'm having, the level of, I need to engage a professional. So it's the same thing with the business. If you know you're going to send to millions of people, you know that you cannot reach them one by one by ringing a bell. So I need to engage the services of a professional to reach that. So, but the rule number is about 20% of your marketing, of your, in fact, not just your marketing budget goes into advertising, because your marketing will probably be a mixture of the whole communication mix, PR and all that. But 20% of your budget normally goes into what I'll call product awareness and development. Yes.
So we're rounding up now. Yes. Do you have any final words on advertising?
Well, I would say definitely advertising pays. And it's not something that you should shy away from. I would say start where you are. I always go to events, and when I hear, how did you get here? And they say, I read the advert, or I saw the advert. I'll say, so you see, advertising does pay. And on a lighter note, I always tell people that if nobody knows your brand, that's why NTA still says every night, this is NTA, and you have your repetitive buy-off and pay-off lines. Why is that? After how many years? Because people still have to understand what NTA is for years to come. So I would say just keep it up, and don't be afraid to ask for help, no matter what. You just might get someone who will invest in you and know that, look, you're going for the long haul. Therefore, I'll invest in your advertising opportunities, and we can grow together.
Okay, thank you very much. We have been discussing the impact of advertising on business performance with Bunmi, and we hope you have learned some tips and you apply them to your businesses. And thank you so much for staying with us. Small and medium-sized business enterprises should up their investment in advertising to become more successful and boost national economic growth and development. Business enterprises in Nigeria should invest more in advertising for them to improve their performance that leads to increased productivity. This is where we draw the curtain on this week's edition of Business Matters. Please do reach us on our various social media platforms. Till I come your way next time, I am Ejiro Sam Umuru. Thanks for watching.